I have a few different things, but the first thing I wanted to talk about was my experience during the exercise that we just did, Pernilla, during the meditation.
Yeah.
And you started off talking about going to the safe place, and as I dropped into that experience, the mind kicked up, and it was a lifetime of my military service, my
Mm.
police service, surviving a tornado, and
Wow.
like your home is really your safe place. And when that has been taken from you, when
Mm.
you
Yeah.
go through something like that, like you have nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The basically the first 40 years of my life have been erased because all of my pictures, my
Yeah.
memorabilia,
Yeah.
everything's gone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Which is such a unique experience to be going through this awakening at
Absolutely.
the same time.
Yeah.
It's but so as you were talking about go to this your safe place, I'm feeling through this and I'm like, there is no safe place.
Mm.
Mm.
There's not. And yet it's okay.
Mm.
It's neither safe nor unsafe.
Mm.
And then your meditation changed to that feeling that I was already having, already experiencing. And it was just such a unique experience to observe the body and the mind going and backtracking through history,
Yeah.
this history that is created, right, of the all the factors and environment that makes things unsafe.
Yeah.
It's, and when you once that once the fetters start breaking, that there's just nowhere to hang a hat anymore. There's no
No.
safe place. There's
And no unsafe place.
right,
There's
right,
not a
yeah,
safe place, but there's not an unsafe place because it doesn't need to be safe or unsafe.
yeah.
What's interesting about it is that there's a perspective at the core of that unsafety, that when you have all of those memories about all the times that you have been physically unsafe, there is a physical body that is at the root of all of that. That's right in the center of each of those experiences. And so when we're talking about the lack of safety, we're really talking about the lack of safety to this physical form, that it has been in danger of being injured in some way, that it has been in danger of um, you know, being killed. That these are the things that we talk about with unsafety. And yet there's another way of viewing all of this, which once we're doing like sixth and eighth fetter stuff, you start to see that breakdown of um, what even feels like the thing which felt to be unsafe. That is one way of viewing experience, but it's not the only way.
Mm.
And the phrase I used this morning, which is very similar to something I said in the book, was a wave doesn't need to feel safe. A wave doesn't need to feel safe from the rest of the ocean. That there is a way of having that experience where this is not the central point in
Mm.
anything. And if this is no longer the central point in anything, this can't be injured or dominated or in any way, you know, separated or threatened by everything else. In if we're taking into consideration this entire flow of experience, the entire totality of existence, there is a way of perceiving that where the idea of safety breaks down because
Mm.
there's nothing that needs to be safe from anything else. It just becomes a moot point. And so there's like one way, like you mentioned, where you can feel unsafe and you can feel safe, and you can recognize that both of those are concepts and both of those have just sensations that seem to be saying that they are one or the other, and that one of them is true or the other is not, or I prefer feeling one rather than the other. And then those things can be seen through. But then there's another way of viewing everything where there is just simply no disconnect and no way in which safety or unsafety makes any sense, even
Mm.
beyond that conceptual level.
Mm.
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's like it's neither safe nor unsafe.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
beyond and I'm just starting to find that more and more
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
all aspects of life. Like there's just I just got to watch your interview with Hannah yesterday,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and such a great interview, and I got so much out of that, so much utility. And one of the things that she talked about was this like nobody knows. And I
Yeah,
remember when that dropped for me, it's like there's just this. Like
yeah.
Yeah.
you can't say anything more than that. And
No.
it's and we dance around this language stuff, but there's just no way to
Mm.
say anything more than what it is. And I even wrote some little notes here to keep me on track of, but I know that the conversation is just coming spontaneously. I have no idea what's going on, including the dogs, going crazy in the background. But um, so since you brought up the sensations, I had asked a question in the Friday Q&A a couple of weeks ago. It didn't get answered. And
Oh,
this
All right.
this is actually it's okay. It's okay. You had some life circumstances come up, no worries. But this is probably a good time to bring that up because this deals with the same thing. So I just finished my master's degree in social work. I've been
Yeah.
doing therapy and working with
congratulations.
clients. Thank you.
Yeah.
And one of the things I'm really noticing is I am kind of getting a counter transference of energy. Like
Mm.
obviously the people I'm dealing with have past really bad pasts and child abuse, you name it. And I'll step outside if I need to. Hold on a second.
Oh,
We
it's
we
okay.
we can't we can't
It's
hear anything.
it's actually
We
taking
can't
out
we can't hear anything.
Zoom is
Oh,
neutralizing
okay.
all the background
Well, that's
noise.
fine.
You're fine.
I can make it easy. The wonders of a laptop. So I have some I have noticed coming home after working a couple of days. Can you still hear me all right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So I've noticed after coming home after working, like I'm just like in a shitty mood. Like I don't even want to come home because I'm afraid I'm going to pass that on to
Mm.
my wife and son and stuff. And it's just I don't feel like it's not like something from me and it's not something from my client. It's just energy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like, and I feel like real deep anxiety, like an elephant sitting on my chest. And it takes a couple of days generally to subside and then I'm good to go. And it's not constant, but and with all this, I have been noticing like I've got some emotional stuff coming up.
Mhm.
And I had sent you I just commented it. I think it was last time we talked, Prunella. I said like I'm not moving to the eighth fetter. I'm not really ready, and you're like totally understand. But at the same time, all this stuff going on, I know I've got something going on, some repressed stuff that I'm working through.
yeah,
So I'm feeling all this stuff coming up and just kind of throwing that out for a little bit of advice on what you
yeah,
guys
yeah.
think.
I completely get that. It's actually tied into something that I wanted to say before.
Mhm.
So I'm gonna weave a bit of things together.
Sure.
When you said about losing everything that you owned in the tornado and you completely lost like 40 years that was just completely wiped out. Do you see that is not possible? Those 40 years never were.
Hmm.
We have the memories we have about a past is super flawed because we don't remember with accuracy. We remember from survival. So
Right.
so we have photos and photo albums to remind us of what we would like to have happened. So we keep photos that gives us a certain feeling of how it was, on that holiday that you took and that, experiences and, with auntie and uncle and all of that. So we have the photos to remind us of how it actually was. But in reality, there is no future and there's no past. There's just this moment right now. And in this moment right now, we create a perception of what we think is happening right now. And then we in this after tonight and tomorrow, you're going to think back on the meeting when you and I had the conversation, and you're going to create a certain image of what this conversation was about and what that meant to you. And in a month and in 2 years' time, you're going to think back on what that kind of meant for you. But that is not the conversation. If you listen to the recording in 2 years, you're going to hear something completely different than what you actually thought we talked about.
Yeah.
Because what is happening in the moment is not real. If I'm really lacking words here. What is happening in the moment is not real. It's just what we create, something we created into in this moment that is useful for other stuff in other aspects of our lives, useful to look at our past and release, trauma that we have, and useful for, so it fits into that image that we have of what I am or what my life is. We have like this structure that we try for everything to fit into. So when you speak with the people at your work that have really, really heavy stories, it's the same thing that is happening. You're creating something that makes sense related to you, just like a picture of your auntie and your uncle. It's not really what happened with the auntie and the uncle. It's not really what happened with the person at work. It's something adjacent thing that is happening where a self-referential experience is weaved into it and is creating something that is not even there. And that is what you're taking home. It's that
So,
energy that you're taking home. Do you know
so
what I'm
what do I
saying?
do about, yeah, so what do I do about that? Or can I do
What,
anything about that?
yeah, what you do is that in the moment when you're speaking with the person, you keep pushing the reboot button.
It
You
doesn't
reboot.
happen when it doesn't happen when I'm having the engagement. It happens after. When I'm having the engagement, I'm fully on just like I am with you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
There's
So
I don't have that. So
so what happens after? When you have spoken, you can give an example if you want to. So what happened after?
it's really weird. It's almost like I just feel I'll be sitting in my office and this could happen 30 minutes after. It can happen a couple of hours. It just sometime in the late afternoon after, a couple days or whatever. It's just like I almost feel like I get physically sick.
It
Like
is it is
and
yeah. I do want you to be curious when you're in the moment of how much you're pushing the reboot button. Because if you're rebooting all the time, so it's this and this and this, and it's not weaved into anything previously, then there's nothing that can grow anywhere
Mhm.
because it's just this. And then the person say that and that and that, and it's not going in anywhere because it keeps being rebooted. If you don't reboot, then it's kind of going in and becoming a part of an experience and becoming a part of you, if you can say it like that. So you get influenced. It's like if you're speaking with somebody that's really, really cranky and you want them to be happy, you
Mhm.
will end up being cranky because you're so investing you in it. You want something else than what is happening. When you push the reboot button, they can be cranky and cranky and cranky and cranky and cranky, and there's nowhere that it can sit in you because you have no wishes for this moment to be any different than what it is. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you speak with the person, are you setting them free to be miserable? And I'm not saying that you putting putting um more, what do you call it,
Coal in the fire.
yeah, coal in the fire. You're not putting more coal in the
Yeah.
fire. So they feel miserable and you go like, yeah, it sucks. I'm not talking about that. But keep having that reboot of it where they are allowed to be where they are. There's nothing you need to take on in it.
Yeah. And just in talking to you here, I can feel like there's a little bit of second fetter, fear, anger, guilt, shame coming up through me, from me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Like I'm not good enough in
Mhm.
the situation
there
to,
we go.
so that's
That's exactly it. So, and that means that, excuse me, in the moment, you're not rebooting. There is a feeling of lack in you. You're not good enough. And with your masters now, you can prove that you are. But the issue is still there. If you have an idea that Jason is not good enough, and even with an education and even with a degree, he's still not good enough. That will come up. And in the moment, you will try to sit and prove to yourself and the other person that you are good enough, that you are qualified, that you actually can do this, and you actually can help them. But the problem is that neither of you are free in that moment.
Mhm.
There is like we did with the meditation in the beginning with I'm safe. The same thing when you have a feeling of low self-worth. Low self-worth is a concept. You cannot be with a low worth. It's simply not possible. There
yeah.
is nowhere in the universe that anybody can be with a low worth or with much worth because it's just a concept. You
Yep.
are you are a perfect Jason as you are. There is nothing that needs to change or needs to happen in this moment. And even when you look back with where you were in your psychological stability and your emotional maturity, even then, Jason was a perfect um, creation of Jason. There was nothing that needed to be any different in that moment. So the low self-worth idea that you have, it's just a concept. It's something that you're creating that is not real at all. So there's nothing to prove. There is nothing for you to um, yeah, to prove or to um yeah, another word. um
Uh,
Can
do,
I,
do you
yeah,
know
yeah,
what I'm trying
completely,
to say?
completely. Well, but I think if I could jump in for a
Yeah,
second,
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think because I recognize this when I first started guiding and doing that kind of work, there was a part of me that still had that certain buy-in to being the one who has to make something happen for the other
Mhm.
person. That
yes.
it's on my shoulder. They're coming to me to get something. I have to perform this service and like say, like, I have to know just the right thing to say to get them to have an experience that they're expecting or that I want them to have for some reason. And that's what you were getting at, that
Yeah.
ultimately the best thing to do is to be completely free of those expectations, both for ourselves and for the other person, so that they are free to have their experience however it shows up. And you're free to be there completely open for them with no expectations or preconceived notions. And it does point back to those feelings of, imposter syndrome or not being good enough and all of that stuff that so many of us have lurking in there, that is reinforcing that sense of the doer who has to be better in order to make something happen. And it's just a reminder for us to look into, can you actually make something happen in somebody else's experience ever? There's an interplay between, like I said to Irene, there's an interplay between absolutely everything in existence that's happening all the time, but it's not forceful. It's not a contrived creation where one thing is making somebody else have another experience or feel something. It's a spontaneous arising. Either it's there or it's not. And however it's interpreted is interpreted uniquely by each of those
Mhm.
experiencing characters. So all you have to do is show up and have that faith in, what you say is going to be at the what you take to be the most useful thing in any given situation, but you'll never know whether it actually is or not. There's always a possibility that what all of your training and all of your instincts are telling you is the right thing for this person, completely wrong. and vice versa, that there could be like what you take to be just some off the cuff statement, something that you take to be
Mm.
completely obvious and not even worth mentioning, and all of a sudden it hits something in them and they have this huge insight, and it really, they feel seen and held and have some wonderful transformation from it. You can't predict those things. So I think it really comes
No,
with the
because
with the it,
it's
it,
not in you.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you don't know. So it's really that open humility to just show up and be present and not take any of this on as a personal failing or a personal triumph. That's why we had that
Mm.
talk about not taking on Friday when Raven asked the question about why do we always when people are gratitude or expressing gratitude that we say, well, it's on you. It's what it is. It's not us doing anything. We're showing up, and whether somebody gets something out of it or not is entirely up to all
Mm.
of the causes and conditions that have started since before the Big Bang. And we can't take credit for any of that. And it's just having those reminders when we're doing any of this kind of work, whether it's therapy or guiding or anything else, to stay
And
there.
it was a bit what I was trying to point to with the pictures, that those a photo album is such a great metaphor for how we are walking around in life and creating a lot of something out of nothing. That we are, and like you say, that is completely, 40 years completely lost. But those 40 years are not more lost with you not having the photos. Those 40 years are lost. They are gone, but they're not more lost just because we haven't got the photo. And I just want to say, I completely understand. My house burned down. I lost everything in the fire except, living beings. The rest, all things were lost. So I completely understand. So it's also coming from a space where I have had a lot of reflection about this. But it is really it's more the concepts around the photo album or what was lost than it's actually the real thing. And it's the same with an idea of low self-worth or a feeling of shame or a feeling of guilt. It's the same thing. It's more all the things that we are plastering onto it that is not real either.
Yeah, the thing that I feel that you guys are transmitting here that I'm picking up is there's a lot of selfing going on.
Mm.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of selfing, and it's something that like the fact that I have a master's degree, I don't feel like I know anything at all. And
Yeah.
especially once, like we talked about with the thing with Hannah, like nobody knows anything. And when
No.
you know how completely ignorant you are, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what piece of paper you've got on the wall, you don't know anything. And the institutions that taught you don't know anything either.
Completely.
You know, but
Completely.
but in that also there is kind of a societal deal. Like there is research and stuff, and we can draw some conclusions on the best practices or something or whatever, right?
Yeah.
But that's all just a guess, and we're just trying to do the best that we can without trying to damage other people.
Yeah.
So I understand the best practices and everything, but that's kind of where I'm in this world of completely not knowing
Yeah.
and being in a position where I'm supposed to know. And in trying to balance that thing, I think there's a lot of selfing going on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
I I I I I would love to give you like the sentence is it's Chuang Tzu
Mm.
that has that whenever you interact with people, don't try to impress and don't try to offend. If you
Yeah.
go through life where you don't impress anyone and you don't offend anyone, then you're on the middle way and then you're actually on the right path. So when you're speaking with the people that you are there for and supporting and helping, do it out from the middle way where you're not trying to impress anyone and you're not trying to offend anyone, but you're just going through the middle way where you're completely humble, knowing that you do not know anything. And whatever you pick up in the moment, you only pick up on because of your causes and conditions. If you had your morning coffee, if you had a good night's sleep, if all of those things are there, then you pick up on it. Otherwise, you don't. and it's completely out of your grasp. There is no, free will adjacent in there that is capable of doing the right thing and helping and all of the wear cape and all of that. It's not. It's simply not. It's not there being offered to you at all.
Yeah.
But I would say the just for, your own second fetter experience, it's also relevant that when we do these kind of interactions with people, it can be kind of draining. It can be kind of
Yeah.
exhausting. And so notice if you're actually also feeling just like that having given a lot of attention and energy and you feel kind of drained, and if that is also leading into where you have these maybe subtle beliefs, or that the
Yeah.
things that the people are talking about are, you as you said, you've had like a trauma-filled past. And notice if, even if you're not consciously thinking about, oh, well, that reminds me of that, or, you're not consciously going into any of that, if some of that is kind of rising to the surface or kind of being mirrored in what they're talking about, that you feel a little bit of that, even again, if you're not dwelling on that in the actual session, notice if that being kind of lower on energy, having your defenses kind of weakened a little bit by that, if you start to realize that you are feeling and being more affected by some of these things that are still kind of lurking in the background that haven't been fully dealt with yet.
And super good point, and make me think of another thing that is is also super relevant. Oh God, we're piling on here.
We are. Good
Um,
thing this is recorded because we
Bring it
can
on.
laugh at
no, it's the part of also being kind towards yourself, because
it.
what you're doing is really it's demanding and it's draining. And if you have expectations about being with that for 8 hours or 10 hours in a day, and then you go home and are super dandy and got all the energy to, chop wood and carry water. I mean, you also need to, relax. Every time we have had sessions like this, or when you have had sessions, we always take time off just to be quiet,
Yeah.
just to have things settling in. So we kind of feel that the body is catching up and the nervous system is catching up and we biochemically are catching up, and then we are ourselves again.
Yeah.
If you have an expectation about that should not happen, that catching up should not happen, I should just go back home and deal with the dogs and dishes and do the laundry and all of that, and that is in one steady stream, then you're not kind towards yourself. You need to acknowledge the effort that you're doing at your work. It is demanding what you're doing, and it's demanding completely objectively on your nervous system. And that needs space. You need space to kind of like get back to yourself again. And like you say, have all the energy just, settling in you. I can recommend you doing physical exercises like the pumping exercise or the shaking or doing any of those 12 exercises that you have in the program. Do though any of those where you kind of get back to yourself, shaking it off, and then, here we are. Okay. And then you can enter the house with the dogs and the dishes and all that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're
Congrats
welcome.
again on
Yeah.
Masters.
Yeah.
Good luck
Well,
with the
Yeah.
good luck with it.
I appreciate it. Love you guys.
Love you too.
Love
Good
you.
seeing you.
Yeah.
Happy holidays too.
Yeah.
You too.